Hey everyone, I'm Drew.
I'm Louise.
And we're going to be starting a new mini-series on the Talks channel called Tailosive Finance Tips because we have some thoughts on how you can better your finances. There's definitely some people asking for a dedicated channel financial tip that wouldn't be monetized for a very long time, so this is the first lesson. But today we wanted to directly address a point that a lot of people have been asking about since the video we made announcing that we've paid off our mortgage. How did you do it? How did you do it in 9 months? What steps did you take? And we thought we would kind of give you some bullet points. There's 5 main things we did.
We're not like finance professionals by any means. This is just what worked for us, and we understand like not everyone can do the same steps to get to where we are, but just baby steps. You know, take it one thing at a time, and then hopefully your actions will build up, and then you'll become a more financially savvy person.
Exactly.
So the first thing that we did to pay off this house in under a year, we bought a reasonably priced house, and it was a house that was within our means and actually well below our means. We looked at maybe around 20 houses, and
some more expensive,
some nicer ones,
some less expensive. We kind of looked at a whole spectrum of houses just to see, like, just so we could tour them and figure out what we're comfortable with.
Yeah, I think the cheapest house that we looked at was around like 70, 80 grand.
And got pretty low.
We put in like 4 offers on 4 different houses, but this one was actually the last house that we looked at. Well, we live in California, so housing tends to be more expensive. We just found this deal that worked for us and was within our means.
So we won't go into the specifics of what it cost exactly for our own private reasons, but I will say that it's below like average what most people probably pay for a house. But like, we weren't looking for necessarily what we would call a forever home, a home that we could be in like for the rest of our lives. You know, some people are house shopping and considering that for their next house, but we were just kind of looking for something for the foreseeable future.
Right,
like
a starter home.
A starter home. You know, we could maybe alter it or add some things to it in the future to make it a forever home, or we might not be here in 10 years. We just don't know. But we did know that the first house we buy, we wanted to be able to get to a point where we owned it outright fairly quickly, and we're able to just kind of save our money because our expenses would be lower. So it seems like an obvious point, because it is. But finding a house that is reasonably priced is a big part.
How little can you get away with and still be comfortable?
Exactly.
Like, for example, our house is 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. There's only 2 of us. We can share a bathroom.
Yeah, one's the office and one's where we sleep together. So it keeps it simple, and that's an important factor in paying it off quickly, is just how much is it?
Right.
That saves you a lot. So
think about it. A bigger house tends to be a bigger mortgage. So we chose a smaller house with a smaller price point. And
it's really easy to get roped into, like, you find a house you really, really like and you're obsessed with it and you get your dreams attached to it to the point that you're like, I'm just going to offer them asking price because I want this house so much. And that's fine, I guess, if you really, really like it. But at the same time, like, the value you're putting on little things that you might be able to find elsewhere or find later in life.
You're kind of trapping yourself in that sense. So that's why we put offers on multiple houses, because we just wanted to get the best deal possible, because we could make it work with any house pretty much.
Yeah, it'd just be harder on some houses. And a big point Louise has brought up in the past that always kind of stuck out to me is you kind of have to come at a crossroads a lot of the time when you're comparing houses you want to buy. And the most difficult one is deciding on whether or not you want to be rich with housing but not rich with your finances, or rich with your finances but not rich with your housing.
Yeah. Would you rather be money poor and house rich?
Yes.
Or house poor and money rich?
Right.
And I prefer to be money rich and house poor. I'd rather live in a smaller house but have more money saved up for other things.
Sure. And it's definitely a spectrum. It's not one or the other. It's not like buy the absolute cheapest house possible so that you'll have better cash flow, but at the same time, just finding that balance is key. So we thought we'd bring that up. Okay, so the next thing we did, which is a major factor, is the down payment, because the down payment on your house impacts the rest of your mortgage payment. So being able to put a fairly sizable amount down up front will affect that month-to-month thing. So making sure before you buy a house, you have a lot saved up that you can, you know, drop on one property. So for instance, on our house, we did a 27% down payment, which is, you know, not the highest. It wasn't like a 90% down payment where you barely have a mortgage, but at the same time, a lot bigger than then, I mean, what's the minimum you can do these days?
So with a VA loan or FHA loan, you can do 0% down. So some people can do that, and that works for them. But we just decided to put down a bigger down payment so that we could have a smaller loan and then have less interest over the long run.
Right.
Which in the end, it didn't really matter because we paid it off in under a year.
Making sure those monthly costs of the mortgage are lower by upping that down payment is a great way because you, like you said, you can do 0% down with a VA loan, but that means the month to month is going to be a lot higher.
So we chose to have a 15-year mortgage instead of a 30. Again, in our case, it didn't really matter because we paid it off in under a year. But if you were to decide between the two, we would highly recommend a 15-year mortgage because you'd end up paying a lot less interest.
We could probably do a whole video on that because there's a whole list of pros versus cons comparing 15 versus 30, but ultimately at the end of the day, if you go with the 30, you may be more comfortable in the short term, but because of the higher interest rate, you will end up paying a lot more in the long run for the house, which is why we decided not to go with a 30-year, even though in the short term that probably would have been a little more comfortable.
So the third thing that we did to pay off our house quickly was we really buckled down on our budget. And we did that by cutting down expenses that just weren't as important. So Drew did a whole video on this, but like subscriptions, we cut out a lot of subscriptions like Netflix, Hulu. We cut out Amazon Prime, which is crazy, but at the same time good.
Yeah, it felt crazy at first because I've been like a Prime member since freshman year of high school. I've been just signed up for that, and you know, it's hard because you have to question a lot of norms in your life if you want to be able to pay off a mortgage or get out of debt that quickly. You have to look at where your money is going. Like having a budget in that sense is crucial, and it required a lot of questioning of things that have just been constants in my life for so long. Things like
how much can you sacrifice to be where you want to be in the long run. So yeah, Amazon Prime was one of the things that we sacrificed. We also downsized our garbage, which
every dollar.
I didn't know that we could do that, but we used to have a bigger garbage can, and then we downsized to the cheapest one. We saved like $3 a month, but hey, that's $3 that's going towards the mortgage. So
brings it down a little bit. So yeah, making sure every penny counts on those tiny little subscriptions because they do stack up over time. So it's not like we're saying cancel your Amazon Prime, lower your garbage bill, boom, paid off. It's the mindset across everything.
Compounding actions that lead up to
canceling Netflix, looking at, Apple Music. We were like, hey, let's do annual instead of monthly.
Right, and he used to do a family plan as well.
Right, because I had like several people on the family plan, but then I asked them like, are you still using this? And a lot of them said no, so I was like, you know what, let's just downsize in every type of subscription service we can that doesn't impact us too greatly. There's things like the Wi-Fi, which I use for my work a lot, so that's important, so we didn't downsize on that. But expenses and cutting things down was a major player, like we talked about in our announcement video, like keeping the heater off for long periods of time. Yeah,
we were uncomfortable in many ways, but again, eyes on the prize. We knew what our goal was, and we were willing to do anything it took.
We were uncomfortable a little bit to be cold, but at the same time, we're not super comfortable being in debt either, and knowing that if we, just bundle up a little bit in the winters, then the house gets paid off faster, all the better.
Yeah, and it's not like we sold our kidneys or something. We never had to give blood or do anything shady or illegal.
All reasonable things. Food budget was the toughest one,
Yeah, we spent a lot of money on food, especially last year when we were kind of like naive and not too good at finances
renting a lot more stuff.
Yeah, but then this year we lowered our food budget to $200 a month, which we've been trying to stay on track.
Sometimes we're above, sometimes we're below. It kind of goes back and forth.
It's just the average.
Yeah. So the fourth tip that we'll give you that we both did was pursuing other forms of income or better forms of income. So for Louise, in the business you work at, you pursued and applied for higher paying jobs because you've been there for a while and you knew there were job openings coming up, and that's hard because you are comfortable with a certain part of your job, but you're willing to try new things. Put yourself out there to suggest, hey, maybe I can get this different position at the company that pays better.
So yeah, I applied for a lot of different internal promotions at my work and was rejected a lot of times, but that's okay. That's part of the process. Eventually I did get a pay raise and a promotion. However, then the whole COVID thing happened, so I'm currently on furlough, but that's okay. We have our house paid off, so it's not like a huge deal. Part of the tip is trying to either apply for higher positions in your work or doing like a side hustle, side business. Like something we did was we sold stuff that we weren't using. So we had a couple of iPhones laying around. We sold those.
The 10R, in case you were wondering what happened. She used to have a red 8 Plus for a while. Then you had the blue 10R. You notice those aren't around anymore because we realized, like, hey, those are several $100 and they're just kind of sitting on my desk all day.
Right.
And you were willing to go all the way down to the iPhone 6.
Which I'm still using.
And she's still using. And we sold both of those phones and I think got close to $1,000 for them.
Yeah, so I think we got like $450 for the 10R and then $400 for the 8 Plus. And originally Drew was wanting to trade them in to Apple for his like upgrade
right.
and get like $300, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Like, we should try to sell it ourselves and make more money and have it in cash rather
it's a bit
than
more
like
work,
a discount.
But it's a bit more work, but you do get more money out of it if you go through the process of selling. But you do have to meet up with people, but we made time for it. And we also sold one of my old Series 3 Apple Watches. Got a couple $100 for that, because you still have a Series 3. It's charging right now in the other room.
Oops.
Caught
naked.
Caught naked without the watch.
Naked wrist.
It's fine. For instance, what I did, because I am a self-employed YouTuber, so I don't really have positions I can apply for, but I considered doing other forms of content that were potentially more profitable, and that ended up helping us a lot, like the EV channel, for example. Like, I was getting more into Tesla and talking about electric vehicles. And I was like, I think there's enough, news and there's enough stuff to talk about this more regularly. If we're talking about tiny things like iPhone notches and the size of the notch, like, why can't we talk about little details on Teslas and upgrades like that? So I launched the EV channel, and that did really well, and that boosted our finances a bit to help us pay off the house faster. So not everybody can do what we did, but
just look for little opportunities around you. Oh, another thing we sold was our car. That was a big one. Yeah. We got like $3,600.
We realized
that all went towards the mortgage.
You just sell things that you're not really using that much. How much stuff do you have around that you're not really utilizing? That, like an old TV or phones or computers that you just kind of have sitting around? I know the tech channel does not encourage probably the budget mindset. It kind of, if you watch Taylor Tech all day, you're just going to be like, man, I got to buy the latest iPhone, the greatest one all the time. But hopefully
that's not true.
Yeah.
You just gotta prioritize. Like, it's okay to have a nice smartphone, but then you don't have to do that every year. Maybe like put some of that money towards something more meaningful, like a house.
Or get an SE instead of an 11,
Right.
Save some money or something like that.
The last thing that we did was we focused on the big picture of the mortgage. And that really motivated us to pay off the house faster, because the difference between like paying it off in 15 years to 3 years was maybe like 30 grand of just interest. And we used that as kind of fuel of our passion to pay off our house quickly, because we didn't want to pay that much in interest. That's money that's going towards the bank, and it's not really benefiting us in any way.
That's money you don't get back. So it's not necessarily, an active step. It's more of a mindset exercise, but there's plenty of websites that have like mortgage calculators that we really encourage you plugging in your data in and seeing the differences, like compare the different timelines, because it's very easy when you're getting a mortgage to just kind of focus on the monthly cost and just be like, well, I mean, that's a low enough amount. We can focus on that. We don't need to pay it off soon because we can afford to pay that. You could, and that's fine. But over the grand scheme of things, plug in those numbers and compare like 15 years to 7 years and look at how much money is going away when you take your time versus when you're aggressive with it and pay it off as quickly as possible. And we realized just in the span of like a few year differences, we could save thousands of dollars by paying it off now. So it's kind of a classic dilemma of, okay, it's kind of not fun because you have to likely delay that fancy car you want or that new MacBook or something you want to buy now. You have to push that off, but if you pay the house off sooner, in the end, actively have more money because you won't be spending as much on the interest rates that pile up over the years.
And that's part of growing up and becoming an adult is delaying that gratification because, children want things now and don't want to wait at all. But yeah, patience is a virtue, definitely. And we learned how to delay like our short-term wants for what we really wanted, which was a paid-off house and just secure shelter that no one could take away from us.
Especially now, we're glad we paid it off because there's so much uncertainty in the future. And we're not saying everyone should pay off their house in a year, because you all have different livelihoods and different incomes. So what worked for us may not work for you. But for us in particular, it was like, we don't know about the future of either of our jobs. There's so little security right now. Like, YouTube is very all over the place. They could change their policy really quickly and you know, we're in trouble, or with the pandemic we're facing right now, we don't know when you're going to be at work again. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty. Yeah. But if some of you are probably in positions where you have way more security or income lined up that you know you're going to be getting, so it's not that hard to kind of build it off as a, you know, decade-long venture to be paying off a mortgage. So I get that. We respect that. So, but we hope the tips and tricks, while they may be kind of obvious, there's not a secret, you know, win the lottery, it helps.
Right. It's not like a get-rich-quick scheme, but yeah, we just want to motivate and inspire you guys to be your best and try your best. That's all you can do.
And we're super young, so don't take our advice as sacred, because we're not that experienced. Yeah, we're learning stuff too. We got a lot to learn in the future. So we're not just saying that as a flex to, hey, we paid off young, but at the same time, it's like, we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and if you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below, because I would love to look at if you guys have any interesting ideas or questions that I can answer.
More topics for finance tips videos in the future. We'd love to talk more about them. So yeah, thanks guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.